I didn't realize something was wrong until he smiled, because when he did, every single one of his teeth was the exact same size. Last fall, I took a solo weekend hiking trip to a national park a few hours from where I live. The place was mostly just dense forest, long, winding trails, and this huge lake that barely anyone visited anymore. For the first day, everything was perfect. It was peaceful, birds chirping, cool air, that fresh pine smell. Nothing strange at all. But on the second night, I met the ranger. I was heading back to my campsite when I heard footsteps behind me, steady and rhythmic. I turned around, and there he was, a tall man in a full park ranger uniform, standing about 20 feet away. He wasn't carrying a flashlight, even though the woods were nearly pitch black by then. He raised his hand in this slow, stiff wave. "Evening," he said, but his voice sounded wrong, like someone was trying to mimic human speech, hitting all the right words but completely missing the natural rhythm. The hair on the back of my neck stood straight up. "Evening," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did I do something wrong?" He shook his head, but the movement was jerky, completely unnatural. "No, just checking on guests. You shouldn't be out here after dark." His eyes never blinked, not once. I just nodded, suddenly feeling really uncomfortable. "Right, I'm just heading back to my campsite now." He didn't respond, he just stood there, staring at me. After a few seconds that felt like an eternity, he spoke again. "Stay on the trail, and don't listen if you hear someone calling for help." My stomach just dropped what I asked, but he didn't repeat himself. I turned and started walking fast, but after a few steps, curiosity or maybe just pure fear made me look back. He was gone. No footsteps, no sound of branches breaking, just gone. I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was just tired overthinking things. But later that night, while I was eating by my campfire, I heard a voice, far off in the woods. "Help someone, please." It sounded like a woman, weak and desperate. I froze, and the ranger's warning echoed in my head. "Don't listen." My body was pulling me toward the sound, but my brain was screaming at me to stay put. The voice kept going and it was getting closer. "Can anyone hear me, please?" I grabbed my flashlight and pointed it toward the trees. The beam cut through the darkness, just showing branches and leaves, nothing else. Then I heard footsteps, low dragging footsteps. Something was walking toward my campsite. I backed away from the fire, my heart pounding, every instinct screaming at me to run. The fire flickered, making the shadows dance around me. And then a woman stepped into the light, or at least, something shaped like a woman. She stood completely still, her head tilted slightly, her arms hanging unnaturally straight at her sides. Her hair was long and tangled. Her clothes were torn like she'd been lost for days. But there was something terribly wrong with her face. Even from where I stood, I could tell she wasn't blinking. The same way the ranger hadn't blinked. She opened her mouth. "Help," she whispered again. But somehow she was much closer than she should have been. I dropped everything and I ran. I didn't care where, I just ran straight into the woods, branches slapping against my face, the cold air burning in my lungs. I could still hear her voice behind me, repeating that one word over and over. "Help, help, help." I didn't stop until I reached a small clearing. I bent over, hands on my knees, just trying to catch my breath. And that's when I heard the voice I feared most. "You shouldn't run." I spun around. The ranger was standing at the edge of the clearing. But now, in the faint moonlight, I could see his face clearly. His eyes were too large and way too reflective, like a deer caught in headlights. His smile stretched wider than humanly possible, revealing rows of identical, perfect teeth, each one sharp, uniform, and completely unnatural. His arms hung too long, and his posture wasn't relaxed. It was like something was just learning how to mimic a human stance. He took a step toward me. "He didn't listen," he whispered. "We watch, we wait. You heard her." I couldn't move. My legs felt paralyzed. His neck twitched, his head tilting way too far to one side, like a broken puppet. "You belong to the woods now." I forced myself to run again. I don't know for how long or how fast, but eventually I saw headlights, someone driving on the park road. I ran toward them, waving my arms and screaming. The driver slammed on the brakes, rolled down the window, and a different park ranger leaned out. This one looked normal. "Human, what the hell are you doing out here?" he yelled. I collapsed next to his truck and begged him to get me out of there. Before we drove away, I glanced back into the dark forest. The other ranger, that thing, was standing right at the tree line, smiling, watching, and now it was blinking. Like it had finally learned how. I left the park before sunrise and never went back. But sometimes, late at night, when everything is silent, I swear I can hear it. That same voice, calling, just waiting for me to listen again. If this story creeped you out, hit that like button, comment if you've ever seen something strange in the woods, and subscribe for more real horror stories you'll wish you never heard.
Moose, to think it was just the moon reflecting on the water, until the reflection blinked. I've always loved walking through the park near my house late at night. It's quiet, it's calm, and it's usually empty. The one part of the park I always avoided, though, was the old duck pond. It wasn't exactly scary. It just gave off this strange feeling, like you weren't supposed to be there. Mumumata, My curiosity got the better of me. It was around 11:30, and the path was dimly lit by these weak, orange park lamps. The trees were swaying in the wind, and the leaves rustled like they were whispering. I could see my breath fogging up in the cold air as I got closer to the pond. It was completely still, like glass. Even the ducks were gone. I stepped up to the railing and leaned over to look into the water. At first, all I saw was the reflection of the sky and the moon. But then, I noticed something else. A shadow. A face-shaped shadow. I squinted, thinking maybe I was just tired. But the longer I stared, the more detailed it became. See? A nosa mouth. The features were too sharp, too clear to be an illusion. I blinked and shook my head. When I looked again, the face was still there. And then, it smiled. This smile wasn't human. It stretched way too wide, like skin being pulled tight over a skull. I stumbled backward so fast I nearly slipped on the wet pavement. My heart was pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. For a second, I just stood there, breathing heavy, telling myself it had to be a trick of the light. Maybe some algae or debris in the water. But then I heard it. A soft tapping tap. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the water, like fingernails tapping against the underside of the pond's surface. My throat tightened. Nope, I turned and walked away. Fast, not quite running, but close. Muria. I swore I wasn't going near that pond again. But the next night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had to know if what I saw was real or if my imagination was just messing with me. So, against every logical thought, I went back. This time, I brought my phone's flashlight. The park was even darker than the night before. Clouds were covering the moon, and the lamps were buzzing and flickering. Movie. When I got to the pond, I hesitated. The water was still again. I raised my flashlight and shined it across the surface. At first, nothing. Then, slowly, like something rising from deep below, the face appeared again. The same stretched smile. The same hollow, unblinking eyes, but this time, it wasn't just a reflection. It started moving toward me, not through the water, through the reflection, but my flashlight flickered. My hands were shaking as I lowered the light, hoping the darkness would make it disappear, but it didn't. Even without the light, I could see its faint outline staring back at me. Tap, tap, tap. Louder this time. The tapping shifted. It was coming from the railing now, like something wet was crawling onto it. I froze. Then I heard breathing, slow, raspy, right beside me. Mubai. I turned my head just a little and I saw something at the edge of my vision. A shape, leaning over the water. It wasn't mine. I ran. I didn't look back, didn't try to understand. I just kept running until I got home. I slammed the door, locked it, and tried to convince myself I'd hallucinated the whole thing. But when I went to bed that night, I saw something that proved I didn't imagine it. Unisaba! My bedroom window had fog on the glass, and drawn into it perfectly was the same smiling face. I wiped it off with shaking hands, my heart racing. 5 minutes later, it reappeared. This time, its mouth was open wider, like it was trying to speak. I covered the window with a blanket and barely slept. Days passed. Bubyang. I avoided the park completely. But even with the window covered, I could hear it. Late at night. Top. 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 Always 3 tops. Sometimes at the window. Sometimes at my closet door. And sometimes right beside my bed. One morning, desperate and exhausted, I went online and searched face in water reflection won't stop following me. To my horror, I found posts, stories just like mine. Movima. The last one I clicked on had a single sentence as the final message. If you ever see it, smile. It already knows your name. Tonight, the tapping hasn't stopped. It hasn't moved. It's right beside my ear, and I think it's waiting for me to look. If this story sent chills down your spine, hit that like button right now. Muzi, Comment if you've ever seen something strange near water, and don't forget to subscribe, because you never know which story might be real.
Sometimes, the scariest thing isn't when someone disappears, it's when they come back, and they're not supposed to. I used to jog at Maple Park almost every evening after work. It wasn't anything special, just an old park with an empty playground, some rusted swings, and a long trail lined with trees older than the town itself. Most people avoided it after sunset, but for me, it was peaceful, or at least, it used to be. One night, around 7:45 p.m., the sun was already gone, and the air was colder than usual. The streetlights flickered on one by one, giving everything this dim orange glow. As I jogged past the playground, something made me slow down. There was someone sitting under one of the big oak trees near the swings, small, hunched, completely still. At first I thought it was just another person enjoying the evening, maybe a kid waiting for a parent. But as I got closer I realized she wasn't moving. Not even a little. I took a few hesitant steps, enough to see her clearly. It was a little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, long dark hair that covered most of her face. She wore this pale blue dress, the old-fashioned kind you'd only see in outdated school photos or thrift stores. When I spoke, my voice cracked a little. "Hey, are you okay?" Her head snapped upward too fast and I froze. Her face was streaked with dirt and her eyes were red like she'd been crying for hours. But what bothered me most was the way she stared. No confusion, no fear, just emptiness. Her voice was raspy as if unused. "My mom, I can't find her." I exhaled, relieved she wasn't injured. Or at least, not visibly. "Oh, okay. Do you remember where you last saw her?" She shook her head slowly. "She told me to wait here." Something about that sentence made the back of my neck tighten. Still, I couldn't just leave her there. "I'll call someone to help," I said, reaching into my pocket. The moment my hand touched my phone, she whispered, "No, don't call them." Her tone was sharp, almost commanding, and it made me pause. "Why not?" I asked quietly. She looked around the dark park before answering. "They don't like when someone comes looking." Before I could ask what she meant, I heard footsteps behind me, fast and heavy, like someone sprinting. I spun around, heart pounding, but there was no one. The park was silent again. When I turned back to the girl, she was standing only a foot away from me. I jumped, stumbling backward. She wasn't blinking. Her eyes were wide and staring directly into mine. "Help me find my mom," she said softly. "Please." Even though every instinct was begging me to walk away, I found myself nodding. Maybe it was guilt, maybe sympathy, maybe fear of what would happen if I said no. We walked toward the wooded path beside the playground. My footsteps crunched leaves and gravel, but hers made no sound at all. At some point, without me noticing, fog started creeping across the path. The air felt heavier, colder. I tried to break the silence. "What's your name?" She stopped walking. Her head tilted slightly, like the question confused her. After a long pause, she whispered, "Emily." Something about the name hit me. Familiar. I didn't know why. We reached a clearing with an old broken bench and a small sign covered in moss. The girl pointed at it. She was here. I brushed the moss away. What I saw made my stomach twist. It was a memorial plaque. "In memory of Emily Harlow, missing since October 12, 2011, age 8. My blood ran cold. I slowly turned toward her. She was smiling wide and unnatural, stretching farther than a normal smile should. "That's me," she whispered. I don't remember backing away, but suddenly I was several feet from her. My breathing was loud, shaky. "This isn't real," I muttered to myself. Emily took one step forward, then another, each step silent. "She left me here. She promised she'd come back, but no one did." Her voice changed, deeper, layered, like more than one person was speaking. "So now," she continued, "I wait." I turned and ran. I didn't look back. My lungs burned. My legs ached, but I didn't stop until I reached the streetlights near the entrance. When I finally checked behind me, there was nothing. No fog, no footprints, no girl. Just an empty, silent park. Later that night I looked up her name. The searchers confirmed the plaque. She really had gone missing 13 years ago, but there was one detail that still haunts me. Multiple eyewitness reports claimed the last person seen with Emily before she vanished was described as a tall figure in a black jacket. The same jacket I was wearing that night. And now, every time I pass Maple Park, even from a distance, I can see a small figure by the old oak tree. Watching, waiting. And I know one day she'll stop waiting. If this story gave you chills, don't forget to like the video, comment your scariest park experience, and subscribe, because there are more true horror stories coming soon.